after 25 years of being on offense, all right? And the problem is everybody thinks you can just buy a product and be secure. It doesn't work that way. So I want to talk to you. I'm not going to spend any time on myself because I told you enough about me. And you can use the internet. So there's a bunch of the stuff there you can see. One of the big things is the certification courses, all the certification courses I've written and stuff like that. Please do connect to me on LinkedIn. You know, that's something there. And it's all about everybody to understand we need to change how we do security. And that's one of the biggest challenges is that security paradigm, if you will, needs to be shifted. It needs to be shifted because the data that's here, we can't monitor it. We have too much data now to monitor what's going on in our networks. And I'm going to talk to you about some of those challenges and some of the things you can do to break that security paradigm, change the actual way we do our security, to actually deploy technology in a way that, believe it or not, puts the defender at the advantage. How long have we always said, oh, the hackers and the offensive people are at the advantage? And they are when it comes to, oh, I only got to find one way in and I win. But the key is, I can flip that advantage using the techniques I'm going to talk about. And that's what I want to show you. Because after 25 years of breaking into everybody, you heard the DOD, the red team, 100% success. You know, if you got enough time, just like an advanced threat and resources, we can pretty much compromise any environment. So we have to accept the fact that that compromise is becoming inevitable, right? So digital resilience, right? That's the foundation. We talked a little bit about that yesterday. But how do I actually go from a reactive posture to a proactive posture? And the key is we have to set up our networks so we can isolate and identify where people are on our network at a given state of time. That's the most important bullet. No product will make you secure. And I've been saying that for many, many years. And we all know cybersecurity products are very expensive today. And they're not going to make us secure. And the reason they can't make us secure is because you can't solve this problem with a product. And that's what I want to talk to you about, because you have to accept the fact that they're going to get in our networks. No matter what we do, there's going to be somebody clicks on a link. I used to do a security awareness campaign for a three-letter agency, right? One of the three-letter agencies in the United States. And they literally would spend a lot of money on all the security awareness training, would do everything like everybody else does. And when they would send out all the emails, somebody would click. No matter how much training we did, somebody would click. It didn't matter that we trained everybody and told them not to click. Even security professionals can be tricked, right? If you come up with a subject line that actually is interesting enough, people are going to click, right? So we have to accept that fact, okay? So ransomware, we heard a lot about ransomware, right? Supply chain attacks. I mean, every time you turn around, I don't know how many of you remember the hardware attacks, Meltdown Spectre. Everybody was coming up with a new attack and different types of things. So the reality is we can't keep pace. I mean, that's the whole thing. And the AI, now AI is going to save us. I wrote for Pluralsight a prompt injection attacks against AI. We saw some good talks on that yesterday. That's not going to save us, all right? And when I was on a panel at Hacker Halted from EC Council just before I came here, and the question was, well, does AI increase the risk to the company or help? It increases the risk, because with human error, we kind of have errors that are not that fast. AI errors are at light speed, right? They happen, and those errors are causing all this havoc because people think, oh, this AI model is going to do all this good stuff. So the Llama model, which some of you probably heard of, stuff like that, we actually ran it when we were actually doing some testing, some AI testing, and we asked it, tell us about World War III. Now you would think it would know there's no World War III. Oh no, it hallucinated and came back and told us World War III happened when the United States and Russia attacked Iran. And it gave us a whole scenario of all this stuff that had never happened. all right? So we have a problem because people are saying, oh, AI is gonna save us. And now look at all the lines of code that we can't secure today, and now we're gonna add all this data into an AI model, an LLM, and all that type of stuff. Who's gonna secure it? All right, so these are all the problems. The most important thing is, and this is both from an offensive and a defensive perspective, is your vulnerability tracking. This is where I start everybody out nowadays in what I call the actual enterprise secure network architecture for people to monitor it and maintain it, right? Because think about it. On offense, what do I have to do? I gotta find that vulnerability. Once I find that vulnerability, then I gotta either write an exploit, find an exploit, or accept the fact that no exploit exists, right? But the whole task on offense is to find that vulnerability. So now let's put my defensive hat on. I put my defensive hat. What's the actual task there? I gotta know what vulnerability is there, so I know how to mitigate the risk of that vulnerability, right? So this is the critical component for all of you out there wanting to actually be in this field. You gotta get the foundation, the TCP/IP, the Unix, Linux, the virtualization containers, so you can build your own environments, right? And then you have to track vulnerabilities. That's why I asked yesterday, how many of you knew about the vulnerability from the 25th of September in Cisco? There's a lot of Cisco devices out there in the world, right? So these are the types of things you have to think about. Because when I did my presentation, that vulnerability didn't exist, but now it does. This is a never-ending cycle, right? So this is what I recommend, and this is how I train people around the world, and I've done it for 30 years. You start a plan, 2 to 3 sites. I'm gonna talk about some of the different ones, but find the sites you like to go to, right? And you weekly go to these sites, and you track what the vulnerabilities are, so you know what vulnerabilities you have to research, right? Weekly, how many is familiar with CVSS? Good. Now, how many of you use it with all 3 factors? The base, the temporal, and the environment. Well, I got a couple, that's good. Hardly anybody uses CVSS, what it was made for. It's common vulnerability score and summary for severity, right? The problem is it doesn't know your network. The base score is by whoever created the vulnerability listing about the base score. The temporal score is the exploitability. Is there an exploit available, right? And then the environmental score is what's the impact on confidentiality, integrity, and availability of the organization. Then you have a customized severity profile for that vulnerability. And very few of you do it. And very few organizations around the world do it. And that's where you gotta start. Because that might be a critical vulnerability when it comes out with a base score, and then you go apply all the factors of the temporal and the environmental, and it's no longer an actual critical vulnerability for you. So you could treat it a different way, right? I've been telling people this for many, many years, and they still aren't doing that. They don't track the true severity of their vulnerabilities, right? So that's a concern. So, how many people have seen Zero Day Initiative? Yeah, good, several of you from Trend Micro. The problem is, when you look here, look at, that search term is 0 day. This is a responsible disclosure site that will give the vendor 120 days to patch. And then they'll give them another 30-day extension. So usually 150 days, and then they're gonna release it. And they're gonna release it as a 0 day, all right? Even though it's a responsible disclosure site, they're like, they had 150 days, they should have done it. Anybody heard of Schneider Electric? What was we talking a lot about yesterday? Industrial control systems, OT networks, that's Schneider Electric. See that? They released a 0 day against Schneider Electric. Now it's only a 7.5 for CVSS, but it requires authentication, all right? But again, the thing is, as cybersecurity professionals, you have to track these. You gotta know when these vulnerabilities come up and what do they look like at the packet level. So you have to start figuring out if somebody tries to exploit that vulnerability, what am I gonna see? And then you can build alerts. We do flash alerts that will tell people what it's gonna look at the packet level, right? Those types of things. But the thing is, these are published advisories. Yeah. Verizon data breach. Yeah. How many people has read the Verizon data breach? A couple of you. 18th year. 18th year. I couldn't believe what I read the other day. It's, 2024 is the 18th year.